Chapter 2 Duel Noir 1. He dreamed of being burned in a furious blaze. When he woke up, the sweat from his brow had travelled down to dampen his cheeks. Or maybe those were tears? He wiped them off casually with his right hand. He was in a hospital waiting room. Nurses came in and went to quiet instrumental music, the scent of disinfectant sprinkling behind them. The electronic display would never show his number. "It seems it's going to take about an hour," an old man said from the seat next to him. But he just gave a standard response and let himself ignore it. If he engaged, the old man was never going to shut up. He looked away, pretending to fiddle with his cell phone. "Rehabilitation, is it? Oh, that has to be tough," the old man said anyway. "Nah, today my legs hurt, so I'm getting some meds," he mumbled while looking down at his phone screen, clearly indicating that he didn't want to participate in the conversation. "The cost of medication is nothing to sneeze at either, is it? And the government's assistance doesn't amount to much. You're not being compensated nearly enough for the injuries you've had to live with," the old man said in a kind voice. He raised his head to look at the old man. The old man wore a felt hat tipped over his eyes, and an expensive-looking suit. There was an old, long scar that cut across the right side of his mouth, so that when he smiled it seemed to warp and twist. "Who are you?" he responded to the old man in a belligerent tone. "How do you know me? Are you with the media?" "I'm a sympathetic stranger." The old man's scar twisted. "Someone with compassion and empathy for you." "Oh, so this is about some religion? Then go hit someone else up. I'm sick of that shit. You guys just feed off the weak." "Oh no, we have no affiliation to any religion, nor do we have any ties to the media, of course." "So then what?" His voice was starting to become increasingly uncontrolled. "These are the kind of people that we are." The old man held out a jet black business card. "Victims Catharsis Committee. 12th District Representative. Tokachiro Endo." And included the telephone number on the bottom. "Victims Catharsis Committee?" "That's correct. Furthermore, we have no connection to the government, so I'd like for you to consider us an independent, non-profit organization." You really are with some kind of religious thing, aren't you? You say it's group therapy or a care seminar and act all kinds and caring to get close to people, and then you take outrageous amounts of money in lecture fees. Too bad, Cramps. You gotta go for the easier ones. With that crap. He sputtered, moving to get up from his chair and go somewhere else. And then, "You don't want revenge?" The old man's murmur reached his ears. What did you say?" He stopped without thinking, turning around. "We have an interest in the depths of your darkness. I see you do indeed have a deep, dense darkness living inside of you." The old man touched the brim of his hat as if adjusting its position on his head, but his eyes remained covered. "It would be difficult to say you had been happy, but you once had an ordinary, lackluster life. You didn't bother anyone, worked for a respectable job, and accordingly, you had people who loved you. And then, 5 years ago, crime stole everything from your life. Brusquely, unreasonably, completely. What have you ever done to deserve that? No, you are innocent. At the very least, you never arbitrarily ruined anyone's life or anything of the sort." The old man's voice caused his heart to waver. Strangely enough, it almost sounded like he was hearing his own voice. "What we offer is nothing like therapy. Let us leave that, too, to the easier ones. We assist people with taking back their own lives. We are an organization that can return what was stolen from you in its entirety. Taking back my own life? You have the right. No, the obligation to do so, for the sake of those who were lost due to that abominable crime. The old man's confident tone displayed persuasive power strong enough to brighten even his soul that had given up long ago. Just like the old man suggested, he recognized himself as a robbed protagonist. The spotlight wasn't shutting off. It certainly wasn't there to illuminate anyone else either. It was there to illuminate his own future. But he smiled bitterly, tossing those delusions to the side. Ever since then, lots of people have passed me by. Policemen, prosecutors, defense attorneys, doctors, insurance workers. In the end, none of them ever saved me. And now I finally reached the peak of getting sympathetic strangers. Honestly, if I had to pick someone to thank, it'd have to be the doctors. At least they made it so I can stand on my own in this world again. But that's all I got. I'm nothing but a corpse that's just barely clinging to life. And any hopes and dreams I had died on that day. He turned his back on the old man and left his seat behind. I will be waiting in the park outside. If you have an interest in our Catharsis, please do come on over. The old man's voice came from behind him as he disappeared into the shop. Writing off his involvement in the crime as just bad luck would be an understatement. 5 years ago, there was a series of arsons near his house. The security cameras in the area never caught the culprit on tape, and the residents lived in fear of a crime with no criminal. The arsons continued for days. One night, the fires that had stayed relatively small up until then grew into something massive, probably in part because the air was dry that night. The fire burned down 2 homes. His family had been living in one of them. Him, his wife, and his 2-year-old son. All 3 of them were severely burnt, but he was the only one who was saved. There were many more arson cases continuing after that, but a certain detective paved the way to solving all of them in one fell swoop. The detective called attention to the fact that if you connect the dots of the arson sites, it made a bizarre star shape. An astrologer in the divination business lived in the middle of the star. The detective went to the astrologer's home immediately, but the man had already burned to death. He had written down some last words that were left next to him. Some incomprehensible thing along the lines of, "I set the fires to change the path of the stars." With the conclusion that the suspect was dead, the case was closed. When he heard the news, he was thrown into chaos. The sword that he'd been sharpening on the grindstone of hatred, that he'd planned on someday sticking into the culprit's chest, no longer had a target. He didn't know who he could throw his anger at anymore. He couldn't turn to his dead wife or son either. 5 years had passed since then, and his body had at least seen great improvement. But his soul was dead. He had lost his job, and was somehow managing on compensation payments from the state. He didn't even pretend to have anything to live for, thinking this life would continue on until its conclusion, with no meaning, with the winner in this game of life already decided, until he heard the word revenge from that old man just now. It was a single ray of light in the darkness. No one had ever shown him light like that before. Well, most likely, no one had ever even understood the depths of his darkness in the first place. What he had been searching for was not a way to clear away the darkness, but a signpost to guide him through the dark abyss. "I had faith that you would arrive," the old man said, the scar on his mouth twisting. In the daylight, the park was full of cheerful voices, young mothers pushing strollers, and boys kicking soccer balls to each other. The old man sitting on a shaded park bench blended into the scenery well. "Figured it couldn't hurt to at least hear you out," he said, sitting next to the old man. You do have a point there. Unlike attorneys or therapists, we would never demand a fee simply for having a conversation. Excuse me. So, who's this we? We are an organization that offers catharsis to those individuals who have had the misfortune of becoming victimized by crime. Enough of the PR crap. What are the facts? Do you send out agents for getting revenge or something? That is a misunderstanding. As I said before, our objective is your catharsis. If you have your doubts regarding this idea, then I recommend you reconsider it. You really beat around the bush, you old geezer. So what is it that you're gonna do for me? I shall inform you of the true culprit's identity. The one behind the incident that left you in such a state. What? What true culprit? He couldn't believe what had just come out of the old man's mouth. He had never even thought about it before. Was the arson not the work of an astrologer who wasn't quite right in the head? So who is it? Who's the true culprit? Wait just one moment, the old man commanded, raising both hands. I will tell you, but only on one condition. Here it is. He braced himself. Most likely this condition would be a fee or something. What's the condition? You must carry out your revenge against the true culprit. Revenge? Correct. It is imperative that you exact your revenge and end the life of the true culprit. You mean Madeline? Yes. A bloody exchange was taking place here in the corner of the peaceful park. There was no one around to overhear them. Gramps, I figure your organization, or whatever, has done plenty of research on me. So why even ask? You know I wouldn't turn you down on a condition like that. Those are very promising words. The old man bowed his head deeply. So just hurry up and tell me who the true culprit is. Before that, I must make our aim clear to you. Well, looks like he's going to beat around the bush some more. But it was true that he didn't know what reason this mysterious organization had for instigating revenge. Revenge. We call this catharsis, by which I mean it is a catharsis for you. It must be carried out by you yourself, and no one else. Let us be very clear on this point. Is this acceptable? You're saying I need to kill them with my own hands, right? Of course. That's what I was planning on doing from the start. Then let us continue our conversation. 3 things are required for catharsis. Do you know what those things are? How would I know? I'm just starting out here. So maybe you could help me out and just tell me. Of course. The first is determination. Regarding this, you say that you have already cleared this hurdle. Is that not right? Yeah. What is needed next is money. Accomplishing anything in this world requires money. Accomplishing something on a grander scale, in particular, requires substantial capital. How do you feel regarding this point? Oh, well, sorry, but I can't say I have enough for that. Very well. For the sake of your catharsis, we are willing to make sponsorship arrangements to take care of the funding. As for the upper limit, there is no particular amount of money that we would say is too much. Sponsorship arrangements with no upper limit? Things were starting to smell real fishy. And then the third requirement. Techniques. There is a technical aspect to killing someone. Do you understand? Most, including you, are novices regarding this point. Therefore, we offer techniques to kill your target that will not be uncovered by anyone. With these techniques, you shall be able to execute the perfect crime. That's very generous of you. However, the old man took a significant pause. These techniques carry a toll. What? In short, you buy these techniques from us. See, look at you. This just ends up being about taking money from the weak after all. He got to his feet, apparently fed up. Pretty elaborate story you had there, but you're just a swindler after all. Please calm down. As I said before, we are willing to offer unlimited sponsorship. We do not mind if you purchase these techniques using this capital. What do you mean? What I mean is that you have no need whatsoever to pay your own way to your own catharsis. I don't get it. Then why is there a fee at all? Then the whole technique rental? That is the most important aspect to this catharsis. This catharsis involves risking your life to make a comeback. It is what it is, and it is a very dramatic event, wouldn't you say? More than any fiction or documentary. What are you trying to say? I'm saying that there are those who would enjoy you watching your comeback. You enjoy horse races, don't you? Or perhaps not? The data we have on you said nothing of an interest in gambling. You may not understand the feelings of those who are very passionate about horse racing, but in our world there is no small number of people who would watch horses running and competing for rank, and are left with shaky breaths, tossing out exorbitant amounts of money, moved to tears. In the same way, there are those individuals who have discovered a taste for watching someone plot revenge and strive to commit the perfect crime. What the hell do you mean by that? In essence, for those individuals of exquisite taste and particular preference in this world, their choicest entertainment is watching people like you carrying a darkness such as yours, making a comeback, your catharsis. He was left dumbfounded by the old man's words. He felt as if he'd accidentally taken a step into a world that he never should have entered. He could more or less understand what the old man was trying to say, but was that really something that happened? Are you trying to turn my revenge into a game? Perhaps you could use that word for simplicity's sake. The old man lowered his voice, smiling. The finer details are fleshed out by the sponsors. Sponsors foot the bill, and offer up the finished product. That is how our catharsis is constructed. So you're being backed by a bunch of people with more money and free time than they know how to use? Do you understand now? But this fact in itself is not indicative of anything except where the money comes from. Our objective will always be to offer you your catharsis. Those interests simply happen to coincide with the interests of our investors. Furthermore, the biggest names in every business find entertainment in catharsis, so we obtain special benefits in the financing of our own business. Is it true? Maybe the catharsis the old man was talking about was just the official front, and the reality was that it was just turning acts of revenge into show business. But it didn't matter to him either way. The objective to kill the true culprit was also nothing more than a means to an end. To him, it was just a challenge on the way to reaching his ultimate goal. Getting his life back. Are you gonna have your cameras following me around 24/7, like some kind of TV documentary? Oh no cameraman will be accompanying you. I shall explain the rules regarding that matter later on. Got it, now hurry up and tell me who the true culprit is already. I am still not finished with my explanation. There's still more? He raised his voice unthinkingly, disgruntled. There is another important point that we have not yet discussed. From here, you shall await your loan and assume the objective of killing your target. But that alone is an empty pursuit. If, for example, you were to sneak up on your target from behind as they were walking down the street at night and bludgeon them to death with a blunt object, well, that would certainly be revenge, but that would not be catharsis. It emphatically does not qualify as catharsis. What do you mean? Salvation is found in overcoming obstacles. true catharsis is only found after facing difficult trials. Huh? Let us discuss in more concrete terms. The old man adjusted his position to sit facing him. As I said before, you will be purchasing the techniques that we offer. Allow us to call this choosing your cards. We possess countless of these cards, all perfectly suited to committing the perfect crime. For example, there are cards with weapons, cards indicating appropriate locations for committing a crime, cards with directions for impossible crimes. These cards have costs determined by their effectiveness and practicality. Then, a deck is built in advance for the commencing catharsis, using the cards you have selected. I don't really understand what you're getting at. Let us use a past instance of catharsis as reference. In that particular case, the person seeking revenge selected the school location card from us. They also selected the metal bat weapon and, to escape suspicion, the hidden room trick. Hidden room? You can even buy that kind of thing? Oh yes. Please consider that there is nothing money cannot buy, so long as someone is willing to invest the money in you. Incidentally, in this example, the cost of the school was 40 million yen, the metal bat was 3 million yen, and the hidden room was 100 million yen, for a total sum of 143 million yen. All prices are calculated in yen. Well, wait a second, these prices are ridiculous. Why does a metal bat cost 3 mil? I could go down to a sports shop around town and probably get one for less than 10,000, right? Oh, please consider that the weapons that we offer are worth no less than advertised. Now listen, if you did go down to the sports shop to buy a weapon, you would be instantly leaving tracks behind. The mass-produced model, the model number, the store, and then the store's security cameras. Every bit of information would have your name written on it in invisible ink, waiting to be revealed. But with the weapons we prepare for you, you need not worry about such things. I see. I get it now. Now, we arrive at the important part. Regarding those obstacles I said you would have to overcome, while we do give you the opportunity to seek revenge, at the same time we also summon a detective to pursue you. A detective? Indeed. A single detective is selected based on the total cost of your deck. The higher the cost of your deck, the higher the rank of the detective that will be chosen. On the other hand, if you keep your costs low, you will receive a low-ranked detective. However, you will not have the cards necessary to commit a perfect crime. What the hell? You mean I have to get chased after from the start? Yes, we believe that catharsis is only brought about under fair conditions. Standing up to the obstacle of a detective, in itself, awards pure catharsis and a sense of fulfillment. If you do not agree with this way of thinking, then it is clear that our point of view differs from yours, and I will be forced to report to the higher-ups that nothing came of our talk here today. I still don't know what you're thinking, but just on a personal level, I don't think I'll find any salvation in taking the coward's way out either. He said, shrugging his shoulders. You're saying that this whole point is getting revenge fair and square, right? Indeed. So you do meet old Enno's expectations perfectly after all. In effect, what is required of you is not that you successfully exact revenge, it is that you conquer the ordeal of the detective. Is this acceptable? Yeah. Very well then. Let us review the sequence of events. First, you use our funds to purchase our techniques, and then you combine what you have purchased into a plan known as your deck, gradually building upon your ideas until you have something practical and concrete. Subsequently, the deck that you prepare is turned into a written challenge, which is then sent to the chosen detective. Hey, wait a sec, written challenge? You go out of your way to send detective an official statement on the crime about to happen? That puts me at an obvious disadvantage. We wish to provide you with the absolute most fair chance possible. The strategy starts at the very beginning. It is essential for you to construct your deck keeping this knowledge in mind. The old man's scar twisted. The information that the detective knows in advance is that which is in the deck you have built. Naturally, we do not mention your name, current location, and so on. Doesn't that still put me at a big disadvantage? Maybe it's better to keep the cost down as much as possible for the set of techniques for the deck so that I'll get a lower rank detective. Or maybe I should blow tons of money on it to use whatever techniques I want for a perfect crime. Now then, the envelope for the written challenge is embedded with a small chip, which transmits electromagnetic waves when the seal is broken. The instant the detective opens the envelope, the signals of the challenge start. The conditions for your victory are for you to murder the target and then pass 168 hours without being indicted by the detective. When the time is up, your catharsis will be complete. And in the event that this occurs, voila! You will be repaid with the exact amount of money that your deck cost. And show that you are not pursued as a criminal beyond that, we will apply for you to be placed in a protection program. If you wish, we will erase all traces of your past up until that point, opening up the possibility of beginning your life again from scratch as a new man. Is that something like that really possible? That was the most important part to him, starting over with a new life, if he could do that. It is possible. Those words alone were enough. What happens if I lose? You should not worry yourself with what might happen if you lose. However, I would be remiss not to tell you the answer. I could hardly call that fair, after all. That said, it is roughly as you might assume. First, the condition for your defeat is ending up in the situation where the detective indicts you as the criminal within the 168 hours after opening the envelope. At that moment, you will lose instantly, and you may consider us having completely broken ties with you. You will be apprehended by the police as a mere criminal, but you will receive no further support from us, and no matter how many times you try to turn us into the police, it will do you no good. Please know this. No use for losers, huh? We are people who bring about catharsis. Our catharsis is perfect. However, unfortunately, there are those who cannot achieve it. Often those people were not adequately prepared to accept catharsis. What other penalties are there? You'll need to pay us for the cost of the deck you were using. So that's how it is. But that'd be useless. No matter where you try to extort it out of me, the money just ain't there. Well, in that case, we will have you enroll in various insurance policies in advance. Their recipients will be people that we have prepared. You're saying if I fail, I should just die before the police come arrest me? Indeed, although this only applies in the event that you are unable to repay the fees yourself. You already know that I'm not going to be able to. We will retrieve the cost that you expended by any means necessary. The old man's expression did not change. In order to avoid this, you ought to win against the detective. Any other big rules that I should know about? Oh, this one is of extreme importance. You will not be permitted to kill the detective. You're free to kill as many other people as you like, in addition to the target. But please be very sure to allow the detective we have selected to live. If the detective dies within the provided 168 hours, it will be counted as your immediate defeat. Even if they just die in an accident or something? Indeed. You are also forbidden from causing any significant harm to the detective. Hush. A match with no opponent isn't worth watching at all, don't you think? Guess it's not going to fly if I try to bump off the detective in my way first thing. Apparently this organization is dead set on having a showdown with the detective. I will convey the finer details of the rules to you as soon as your challenge is set in stone. The old man turned to face him again. A sublime jewel to take back one's life. We call this the Duel Noir. If you can win against a detective, a new future will open up to you. Now how does that sound to you? The answer to that question was more or less decided, but he couldn't answer right away. What the old man said was so far removed from reality, it sounded preposterous. It was peppered with all these ridiculous words about whatever committee and perfect crimes and whatnot. He was still cautious about maybe being swindled even, but he couldn't just laugh it off, not when it had all been prefaced with the promise to tell him the true culprit. If the person who put him in such a miserable state was still out there taking it easy, he could absolutely never forgive them. They would have to pay with their life. If I don't say I'll do it, you won't tell me the truth behind the arson 5 years ago? Indeed. It was bait. It was probably just bait to get him involved in this game. But it was such attractive bait. It was the kind of bait that could mean salvation for someone like him, who had lost everything, who had become empty inside. If he refused it now, he'd probably regret it for the rest of his life. No doubt he would keep blaming himself through the rest of his unfulfilling days, asking himself why he didn't accept the jewel. Instead, shouldn't I fight? It's better than living like I'm dead. I like that look in your eyes. The old man's shoulders shook as he laughed gently. One thing, I do not know if this will influence your decision, but allow me to share with you some facts from our data. In all of the Duel Noirs that have occurred until now, the detective side has a victory rate of 28%. Just 28%. That means over 70% of the time those who used our techniques to exact revenge are able to successfully carry out a perfect crime. Are those the real numbers? When we speak of detectives, we are speaking of all of them, from the best to the worst in the business. There are even those who receive the written challenge and yet don't realize anything will come of it, sleeping through the entire incident. Well, those are just the most especially fortunate cases. I only have a 30% chance of losing? Oh, there's no way, right? I'm gonna win this for sure. It seems you've made your decision, but we will wait on it for the night. Let the moonlight cool your head, and if you have still not lost your drive to duel in the morning, then come here tomorrow at 10 AM. Is that alright with you? He nodded at the old man's question. I believe you already understand this, but nothing will come of you going and telling anyone else about this. In the event that you talk to anyone, not just the police, but even one of your acquaintances, we will not appear before you again. I understand. Then, until we meet again. A message for the detective. Heed the cry of the noir. Location: Sirius Observatory. 30 million yen. Weapon: large shears. 5 million yen. Weapon: fainting drugs. 5 million yen. Trick: dismemberment. 80 million yen. Total cost: 120 million yen. According to the above costs, the following detective is summoned. Yui Samidari. Chapter 2. End.